Alright, we are recording for the penultimate chapter of Revenge of the Sith, and I hope this video ends up being short. I doubt it will be based on the number of notes. I will say this though, I wouldn't say things are bad. There's a lot of poor stuff in there, and I think many missed opportunities. Which is really disappointing, and not just for missed opportunities as in, oh, it would have been so neat if we had done that. No, it's also hey, you set up that this is how Jedi fight chapters ago, why are we not doing that here? Alright, first thing that we have, and is rather annoying to me, is, so Obi-Wan comes to Padme's apartment to talk with her, find out if she knows where Anakin is. Obviously, she lies. We see this in the movie. But what's annoying is, instead of giving it the back and forth between them, having the conversation, them also figuring out what each other knows, because Obi-Wan doesn't fully know the situation with the Senate and the Galactic Empire. Padme does. Padme doesn't know about the slaughter of the Jedi fully in the whole Order 66 stuff. She doesn't quite know that. But we don't get any of that back and forth. Mostly. I'll get to that. Instead, because 3PO let Obi-Wan in, we're following his point of view, and he's basically, I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't really care. So they're talking about some of the stuff. It's like, I get some of this is stuff the reader should already know, but it still can be valuable to hear each other saying it, and also their reactions to each other saying these things. So, I get it as a time saver. We're just summarizing it by 3PO's point of view, but 3PO's point of view is being dismissive, which isn't, I think, healthy at this moment. There's also an element of technically he should still be hearing it all. Even if he's not interested in it, he should be hearing the entire conversation because he is a servant. He has to, if she says something, he has to react. It'd be like, Alexa. There we go. I was trying to remember Alexa. Has to listen all the time in order to know how, if you're trying to order something on Amazon. Be kind of like that. It's not interested in political conversations, maybe, but it, Alexa still needs to listen the entire time. So yeah, I plus it also kind of contradicts all that because we then do get to them talking and Obi-Wan telling her that Anakin killed the Jedi at the temple, including the younglings, and it's like, so you're catching each other up on what's been going on, and then say, oh yeah, here's the thing that's actually part of that catch up, and now we're getting that explanation. So it's like, it kind of would have been best if you had that. And it is, hang on, let me even try to find it. This also just occurred to me, it's not even, okay, it's a little, okay, yeah. When was the last time you saw him? Do you know where he is? This is where we get back to, okay, now we're listening into the conversation. No, she is lying, but, still, no. Padme, you must help me. Anakin must be found. He must be stopped. How can you say that? He's just won the war. I mean, she is also not supposed to be that stupid. Her being defensive, though, that's fine. But we're not really in her head for this. But yeah, we get a bit. There was, how can you say that he's just won the war? The war was never the Republic against the Separatists. It was Palpatine against the Jedi. We lost. The rest of it was just play acting. Is real enough for everyone who died? Yes, including the children at the temple. What? They were murdered, Padme. I saw it. They were murdered by Anakin. It's a lie. How could he could never, not by Anakin. If you're gonna do the summary stuff, I feel pick it up there. It's like, it's a lie. He could never, not by Anakin. And then have Obi-Wan responding to that, I saw the recordings, Padme. I saw him kill the younglings at the so that way you still get the whole summary stuff, but then you're interjecting at a climax in that conversation. But instead we cut in before that, so it's like you're cutting into the very summary that you're trying to use to skip things. So it's awkward. It is awkward. But I did put in my notes because it did occur to me, this could be how the story flowed out, seemed the story wanted to be told. Like if I were writing, I could see potentially doing that, but I think also when I would get to editing, I would realize that I was doing a summary to skip forward and then just skipped back to then go forward again. I would edit that out. All right. I mean, I would, if the story is still telling me, no, that's what one speed. If the story is telling me that, then I wouldn't be able to write coherently there. to have work, but I have a feeling I'd be like, no, we're going to write it out this way. And the story would be okay. So yeah, it's it's a technical point. It's poor writing, not bad writing, as I said. But it is more of a technical point. But it did still, I noticed it and it annoyed me. Oh yeah, this is also funny. So she faints, at least partially, and Obi-Wan understands and recognizes immediately she's pregnant. That's part of the reason why. But 3PO, though his photoreceptors hadn't been dark on the ongoing changes in Senator Amidala's contour, C-3PO had no idea what they might signify. He had no idea how a woman's body changes when she's pregnant? There are little kids that know this. But not 3PO. I'm just... I'm sorry. It's funny. Why are we making... I mean, it's funny 3PO is stupid, but it's also funny. Why would you make him this stupid? I mean, it makes perfect sense. In fact, as a servant, you'd think he would know. That he would need to have some knowledge of pregnancy for proper protocol, but also it's like responding to a woman, because it's like, what if she were to have, I mean, she doesn't completely faint, but it feels weak and collapses. Obi-Wan catches an oath. 3PO should have some knowledge of that, because that is something that could happen that he would observe just in his normal day-to-day role. So it would make sense that he would have that as part of his program. I really do not know why this is in here. Okay, and it's just, like, it's funny that he's an idiot, but that is also 3PO's always an idiot. Yeah, he kind of is. R2-D2 is the brains of that duo. Let's be real. But it's funny because I'm just in awe of why anyone would choose to do this to that character. I don't see it serving any purpose, and it doesn't make sense. I don't think it makes sense. Okay, now we start getting into the actual fights, which I have a lot of notes. A lot of it I might be able to skip over. So I might end up doing that. And just try to pull things all together. Why do I feel like I somehow... you know what? I may have done that. Yeah, I may have... I missed a little bit here because I was writing a note. And I do remember I was writing a note here, and I may have just accidentally skipped a paragraph or two. This is... Wait a minute. I guess he's just rounding up. Talking about Yoda here. Okay. It actually, what I skipped over here isn't substantive, but it does connect with actually something that I do want to talk about later. So it is a good thing to look at. Okay. So Yoda, before fighting Palpatine, and maybe it's just to help pass the time because he has to wait for Obi-Wan to find Anakin. Yoda does meditate, and it's like, good. The Jedi should, before facing a Sith Lord, they should pause and meditate. There is, unfortunately, not much. It isn't set up for stuff that. This is, as I was saying, there's stuff set up earlier, described earlier, that we're not using for these two fights, and I really feel they should be. And I think that there is a way to use that to tell the story then that would be better. And we'll get to that, but I want to get to this first. So, and I just want to check. Okay, so that's a thought I had. Okay, then there's okay. So it's gonna get weird because it goes back and forth between the fights. My notes go back and forth between the fights. I'm gonna try to just go through the stuff with Yoda and Palpatine first. So with a little bit of dancing in my notes. But anyway. When Yoda finally appears and Palpatine is there and recognize him, there is some of this that I like, but not all of it. Why, Master Yoda, what a delightful surprise. Welcome. The voice of the shadow hummed with anticipation. Let me be the first to wish you happy Empire Day. Find it happy you will not, nor will the murderer you call Vader. So that is the threat I felt. Who is it, if I may ask? Who have you sent to kill him? Because this is following him basically saying, I sense strips in the Force, Vader, somebody's coming to kill you. Be concerned. All that. And it's like, there is banter here that I don't care for much. I do like the, let me be the first to wish you happy Empire Day. That's perfect for Palpatine. But then it's almost jocular. Oh, pish, Master Yoda. It wouldn't be Kenobi, would it? Please say it's Kenobi. Lord Vader gets such a thrill from killing people who care for him. This, I actually could grab it. I'm not going to, because I have the original trilogy novelizations back. I really, really liked how Palpatine mocked Yoda's way he spoke as a way to provoke Luke. But the thing is, it was short. It was direct. This, it feels drawn out. And I don't think that's right for Palpatine's character. Let me be the first to wish you happy Empire Day. That's actually really, really good. Because it is dismissing Yoda, that I'm wishing you a good day, even though they are mortal enemies. But it's also happy Empire Day. Because he's rubbing in, I won. You have lost. It is an empire now. I was like, it's really, really good there. Like, just like in the original trilogy, in Return of the Jedi, when does he live still? Or no? Just how he spoke in a way that seemed as just he knew the way Yoda spoke. And in asking if he's still alive or not. Because it's mocking Yoda by impersonating how he speaks, but also asking if he's alive or if he's dead or not to get under Luke's skin. That's really effective, but it doesn't really go on from that. But this, oh pish, Master Yoda. I mean, it's like, really? Okay. Need to skip around a little bit, which does make it a little weird. One thing that is, there is this that is a little bit of a problem. But one thing I do want to point out, the Yoda-Palpatine fight is far less spectacular in the book than in the movie, which is fair because it's not the critical fight. Anakin and Obi-Wan is, since they are the two protagonists for the book, really, for the story, really. Not Yoda, not Palpatine. So we don't need their fight to be the focus here. Their fight should be. The Anakin Obi-Wan fight should be. But one thing I did find odd. From the shadow of a black wing, referring to his sleeve and how he's basically the shadow and pouring forth shadow. A small weapon, a holdout and easily concealed backup, a tiny bit of treachery expressing the core of Sith mastery, slid into a withered hand and spat a flame-colored blade of its own. So I got a problem with this. This is just saying, Palpatine does have a second lightsaber, because his first mace had cut in half. It's like, okay. He very, very elaborately hid that first one. And getting it and seeing it's like an old friend not seen for decades. Like, it was significant for him to get that back. This is basically the same day, and it's like, yeah, I just got another. Where did you have this hidden? He just randomly has a second lightsaber. And it is random, because him having to hide it makes sense. Because he cannot expose that he's a Sith, that he has any lightsaber training. So that's why he hid it in this very special sculpture. But now he just has another. It had to come from somewhere, especially because it is a red blade. It's not like he got it from one of the fallen Jedi. It is a red blade, so it had to have been. It has to be a Sith lightsaber. He had to have had it somewhere. How did he conceal it? You made a point of the other one. You need to make the point here as well. Oh yeah, that's right. I'll mention this because I might forget it. R2 is actually who saves Padme. Because she had, after being choked, collapses on the floor, landing deck. 3PO's like, I can't carry her. I'm only strong enough to carry a tray of drinks. Which again, technically because of his role as a servant, it would be reasonable he would be able to move a human body around. Potentially, the level of certain nurses. Some nurses are freaky strong. Okay, you may not realize it because they need the ability to take a full-grown adult that cannot necessarily move on their own, and to turn them over in bed, to lift them up, move them out of bed. I mean, he should actually be on that level of strength because potentially that is a role he would have to fill. So there's that. But anyway, R2 comes over and basically uses his mechanical arm to twist up her ropes to grip and pull. And we also then get 3PO translating him again, which I don't care for. Been through that. I don't remember if we see R2 as who saves her in the movie, and I just don't remember. Oh, and by the way, one thing. I legit have been feeling like I don't necessarily want to watch the movie after going through the book. It's... I already, as I've said before, it's my least favorite of the prequel trilogy, and this story hasn't helped. It hasn't helped me be interested. Though I will grant there is some of this that I do find better. Anyhow. So now back to the Yoda Palpatine. I'm just trying to see where to start reading it. Okay. I'll say this first. Suck it, Rise of Skywalker. Which is already a horrible movie. But suck it. It came when the Avatar of Light resolved into the lineage of the Jedi, when the lineage of the Jedi refined into one single Jedi. I don't care for that kind of redundancy there, but anyway. It came when Yoda found himself alone against the dark. In that lightning spear tornado of feet and fists and blades and bashing machines, his vision finally pierced the darkness that had clouded the Force. Finally he saw the truth. This truth, that he, the Avatar of Light, supreme master of the Jedi Order, the fiercest, most implacable, most devastatingly powerful foe the darkness had ever known, just didn't have it. Yeah. This I actually like, but not how it's being told here. And I'll get to that more so with the Anakin Obi-Wan fight, I think. Or when I get to talk about that, I think I will talk about... I'll explain more why I don't necessarily like this. How it's being told. But I am good with this. That Yoda recognizes... He can't win. He's not powerful enough. And we do get an explanation why, which is also a bit of an issue. Which kind of ties into the other thing. Basically, what he recognizes is... The Jedi had spent that same millennium training to refight the last war while the Sith have been adapting. Which is valid. It's also interesting to point out... He is the lineage of the lineage of the Jedi refined into one single Jedi. It's like, okay, the Sith split off 1,000 years ago, initially, and that's when you then had Bane survive, Rule of Two, all that. Yoda's been alive for most of that. He's really a bad example for the lineage of the Jedi since he was alive for the majority of this. Anyhow, I mean, like Obi-Wan is actually like a recipient of all the ancient knowledge coming down to him. While Yoda is a source of that ancient knowledge and may be stuck in some of the older ways. Yeah, anyhow. But it's still interesting he recognizes he can't win. But he also recognizes this. He knew at that instant that this insight held the hope of the galaxy. But if he fell here, that hope would die with him. So recognizing that because war itself became the Dark's weapon, and he just went to war, he can't possibly win. Which is kind of silly, because ultimately it is through conflict that the Sith are defeated, but I mean, it's not the best written there as far as larger context, but it still is that point of approaching this with aggression, he can't necessarily win. Of course, there is also one other issue with this, in that Mace nearly did kill Palpatine. Yoda is not better than Mace. I was like, the lineage of the Jedi are in Yoda, but he's weaker than the last dude that faced Palpatine. Don't worry about that one. All right. One last thing I will add. After Palpatine electrocutes him, throws him down, and Yoda escapes, he then sounds the alarm, gets the clones in there, and tells them to find Yoda and to destroy the building even to ensure he's dead. Like, if you can't find him, just blow up the whole Senate building. Which is a bit extreme, but does also make the point of Palpatine wants him dead that badly. Okay, now, for the Obi-Wan Anakin stuff, first I want to go back to this. Which I'm not sure how much I may actually read from this, but so Padme arrives, Anakin is feeling great, which is also one thing that I do have an issue with. It uses Vader and Anakin as though masks for him, or at least it's Vader now and he puts on the Anakin mask. Vader's still so young, though, that I feel it would be more so Anakin putting on a Vader mask, but it's still, I don't like this. In that Vader shouldn't care about Padme. Not really. I mean, may see her as... this may sound bad, but see her not as a partner, but as a conquest. That is his... Padme would, if she lived, would be Vader's consort, not his wife. Okay? But Anakin would see Padme as his wife. Vader sees the galaxy as his goal, as his desire. Anakin shouldn't care about that. Anakin's only interest should be in Padme and their family. So, there should be conflict between these two masks. And there's none described here. And that I feel is a missed opportunity. And there's some other stuff like that as well that I feel is a missed opportunity. And it's also, we don't quite have, like the masks going back and forth much either. So there's opportunity to delve into the duality that Anakin should exist in at the moment. And it's basically not taken. Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to think if there is anything. I don't believe so. So I can just get into the larger stuff for the fight, which, yeah. So Yoda meditates before fighting. That's good. Happy with that. Obi-Wan does not appear to. That's disappointing. But there's another issue that I have here. And this is what I was saying earlier, that much earlier in the book, in part 1, when Obi-Wan is on the bridge of the Invisible Hand, was it Grievous's flagship? And he submits himself to the Force to such a point that he is basically one with the Force and everything on the bridge, and even the battle outside. He is one with all of that. Okay, so he's basically a Jedi at the highest level a Jedi can be for oneness with the Force. Why don't we get that here? We don't. None of that is described here. Yoda too should be in that kind of state, and that's not described. It's described that all the lineage of the Jedi are in him. Okay, that's fine, but it's not describing this touching on omniscience and a connection with everything around him. We don't have any of that, which actually would be very appropriate because they do describe Palpatine as just a shadow. So it does also describe Yoda as a being of light, but that's more of like, seeing him in the Force. But it's like, okay, well, what are the impacts? What are the results of him being this being of light? We could have something there, and we don't. And I also think that should have been used with the whole Yoda realizing he can't win. If it were instead, he sensed the Force itself was saying, you are not to win. But yeah, and it's like, Yoda would be submitting to the will of the Force. The will of the Force should be the prophecy, which is Anakin failed. He's not fulfilling the prophecy, or at least is not the fulfillment of the prophecy. Luke is going to be. You cannot kill Palpatine. That must wait. So it's like, as you could have Yoda being filled with all the power of the Force, more or less. But even as he uses it against Palpatine, he could have a sense that, why am I not strong enough still? And then a sense come in that he is not the one to kill Palpatine. That, I think, would have been better. That I think would have been much better, because it would allow Yoda to be on a much higher level than what is described here, which would also put Palpatine on a higher level, but that the Force is basically saying, not time yet. And that would have been very powerful there, and also what we could then do with Obi-Wan, and I'll get to that. Oh, crap. I literally just had a thought, but when I gave the aside about Obi-Wan, I lost it. And another point about that with Yoda. So I'm trying to think about it again. Oh, that's right. It also seemed when Dooku was fighting Anakin and Obi-Wan, it described how he started to feel old. But then he would just draw the Force back into him, draw the dark side back into him, and he would be reinvigorated. He'd feel young again. We also don't have that described for Yoda. And it's reasonable that he could still feel that. It's not the dark side of the Force, but that through so connecting with the Force, he would be able to do that. But we don't have any of that. So it is like, well, Yoda, you're not fully being one with the Force. It's Yoda fighting Palpatine. It's not the Force fighting Palpatine. That should be the goal of the Jedi. That's the Force fighting. So, again, I feel we are missing a very good and powerful opportunity there to set up the original trilogy, which, yes, is the older one, but it still is setting up that Yoda is not to win. Not just that he cannot win, that he's not up to it, but that he is not to win. I think that would have been much better. Anakin and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, again, should have been able to enter into that same kind of state that he had when he first fought Grievous at the beginning of the book. But we don't have any of that. No suggestion, even, of him trying for that. No meditation suggested, nothing. And this I might also have to start looking back at the notes. And in a way, it also just that disappoints me again, because you would have an opportunity for something else with that, different from Yoda. Because Yoda wants to kill Palpatine. It's like, there's no issue there. But Obi-Wan doesn't want to kill Anakin. And it even, I'm not sure which page, I'm not sure if I can find it either, but I can quickly try. And I think I know approximately where it was on the page. Like, I know if I'm just looking. Okay, no, it is back here. Okay, the man he faced was everything Obi-Wan had devoted his life to destroying. Murderer, traitor, fallen Jedi, Lord of the Sith, and here and now, despite it all, Obi-Wan still loved him. Now, I do have some issues with what comes after this, what is said specifically after this. But let's hold on to just what is said there for the moment. If you had Obi-Wan in that transcendent Force state, let's say, where he is transcending himself to be everything around him, you could then have that, like, he's trying to connect with that, but he can't. And the reason being that he's not letting himself want to kill Anakin. And indeed, there are moments when he has an opportunity to kill Anakin, and he doesn't. He pauses. He hesitates. And he shouldn't. He absolutely should be trying to kill him at every opportunity. So you would have had, if you had written it that way, that he is connecting, he's trying to, but he can't, and that is why. Because he's not submitting himself to the Force. He's still trying to use the Force to achieve his end, which is not to kill Anakin, but merely defeat him. So it's like, if the will of the Force was, Obi-Wan, you kill him now, it wouldn't be, but just like how Yoda is not to kill Palpatine, but still is, he should be, if there were that conflict that he were having with the Force, and he just finally realizes that when he realizes he still loves Anakin, and that's why he's like he himself is causing the Force not to flow into him perfectly, or is holding back the Force, that he's holding himself back. So it's like that, I think, really would have made it better as well. Because again, you having him use the Force at a fuller level that you already established earlier he's able to do. Right? That is established. Like, this would have been days ago. But you're not doing it. Oh, and by the way, for their fight, there's basically never a time that you're in Vader Anakin's head, which is a disappointment as well. I do think that we should have gotten some of that, but no. And I'll also get to something related to that, but I want to continue with this. Obi-Wan still loved him. Yoda had said it flat out, allow such attachments to pass out of one's life, a Jedi must. But Obi-Wan had never let himself understand. He had argued for Anakin, made excuses, covered for him again and again and again. All the while, this attachment he denied it even feeling had blinded him to the dark path his best friend walked. Obi-Wan knew there was, in the end, only one answer for attachment. He let it go. So I actually have an issue with this. May sound weird, but I think it would have been more powerful. Not a I need to let it go, but more powerful if he decided because of his love for Anakin, that's why he must kill him. That Obi-Wan's responsibility for all the things he loves is to destroy this evil that Vader is. And so to a degree, that love actually sharpened his blade more, make it more important to him to kill his best friend. To kill his brother, because it is that necessary, even for Vader, even for Anakin, it is that necessary for him to die. And that, in a way, would also still agree with the Jedi, because the Jedi do view death as part of life as well. The Sith aren't the only ones that should view it that way. I mean, it's like, with death you become one with the Force. So it would be consistent, and he should be able to, he shouldn't have to let go of his love for Anakin. Yeah, but it is still yes, you made those mistakes. Now you have to take the responsibility and kill him, but that doesn't mean you have to be without your love for him. As I said, the love could actually sharpen the blade against Anakin. Okay. I'm glancing at this. Well, I'm doing more than glancing. I do need to criticize that. Hold on, where is it? Okay, I mentioned that already. Okay, that's the point that I want to get to, but there was another. I want to make sure that was it really that early? There it is. Okay. So, coming back to Anakin. As I said, we never really get inside of his head, but kind of, as I said, the duality of Anakin at the moment, Anakin and Vader, would be very interesting and worth exploring. But we don't, because we basically aren't in his head after he chokes Padme. Which I don't remember if I said. I put it in my notes, I just don't remember if I said it or not. I actually did I don't remember what the lines are in the movie, but I did kind of like how the lines were in the book, including her visceral experience of being choked. Although I'm not sure if it necessarily is you would see red. I think she might be blacking out instead of redding out, but either way, it's still that actually I did kind of like here, and how even like her last thought before losing consciousness is, I love you. I mean, it's like that's actually good for her character there. But what would have been interesting, because also why are Anakin and Obi-Wan able to continue this fight? Why are they so equal? Or even why is Obi-Wan able to ultimately defeat him? And one thought that I had that I kind of like, and it goes back to the duality thing, is Anakin is trained to use a lightsaber as a Jedi, but he is now trying to be a Sith. He's trying to use Sith power, which doesn't necessarily align. Those might not be consistent. So the thought I had is it would be really neat if instead, if an explanation was given that basically he is trying to merge Sith and Jedi techniques together and is failing. So this is causing him to make mistakes that Obi-Wan is able to take advantage of because he is focused. I think that would have been really neat and help stress the whole duality for him at the moment, a duality that is lost with Padme's death, or believed death. He doesn't know when she died necessarily. I mean, it's, at least based on what I know from the movie, because that's actually going to be covered in the final chapter. But it's still, that would have actually been, I think, very effective. To have that back and forth and give a reason for why Obi-Wan is able to defeat him, even though Anakin is younger, so he should be physically more capable than Obi-Wan. That was a reason given why Darth Maul was able to overcome Qui-Gon. Their age difference isn't that huge, but it still is. You could do that. And Anakin is the chosen one. He has great power with the Force, and with the Sith aspect to it, he is commanding the Force to do what he wishes. So it's having that conflict there would actually explain Obi-Wan being able to challenge him as effectively, and not just because they know how each other fights. Yeah, Obi-Wan knows how Anakin fights, so he's able to hold him off. Well, Anakin knows how Obi-Wan fights, and he also is now channeling a darker power than he's ever had before, and in a way that may allow him to overcome Obi-Wan, and yet he doesn't. So, yeah, but it would also then, like I said, if Obi-Wan were channeling, entering that transcended state, it would have helped with that making sense, and it also would have helped show how powerful Vader is. That even though Obi-Wan is in this heightened state, Vader's still able to hold him off. That just by raw power is able to overcome that force, that focus, that drive. One thing I did note, it was a little earlier than this. You actually don't have much progression in the Anakin Obi-Wan fight, which I find disappointing because it's less interesting. I mean, yeah, they move around a lot, but it's not like you have a sense of they are having to adjust things and go like that. And I am biased here, absolutely, because the Children of Many Gifts literally chapter the 40s and the 50s, two separate but battles in both of those, spanning almost 20 chapters in total, right? It probably, there's some just narrative stuff in there. It's probably like 16 or 17 chapters of just fighting in that. And there is progression in those fights. So, yeah, I mean, it's like you see the combatants getting, for the 40s, it's one combatant is apparently getting stronger and stronger. The others are just changing out. So you're seeing these different abilities, some better suited than others to the fight, but it's still, you see that progression. And then in the 50s, it straight up is, no, the two combatants there are constantly battling each other and having to get better. It does start off with them just testing each other, but then they end up getting serious to the point that one of them ends up using a let's just say, ultimate technique. He has two. This is the first one he tries using, hoping it would work. It doesn't, but he uses that and is actually continuing to improve upon it as he goes. All right, okay? But he then stops using it because he realizes something. His own normal attacks have actually surpassed that ability. So he has progressed beyond that. And it's like, progression in a fight can be very, very interesting and very important. But you don't really have it here. There is the emotional progression for Obi-Wan. That he realizes in the whole, I love him and I need to let that go. Again, I don't think that's actually necessary, let's say. I don't want to say that's not appropriate. But not necessary. As I already said, that could make the blade sharper. But anyway. So yeah, the lack of progression, though, it is frustrating. And it's, yes, they move around, but that's not exactly progression, because it's not like they're moving in order to give themselves an advantage. Or at least it's not clear that that's the case. So, I mean, it's not like Obi-Wan is thinking, because he is normally backing up to Anakin, it's not like he's thinking, I'll drag him out here, shut off, I'll do the damage that shuts off the ray shield so that then this whole facility is going to be destroyed, so that I die with him. So if that were the case, that would be fine. Because that is okay, now we're seeing the strategy here, why he is doing this. But it isn't, it's just they're fighting. And ultimately, Obi-Wan wins. One thing, though, that is odd. Because I get Vader, Anakin, I get he needs to live. I get that. But still, it's at the end. Obi-Wan looking down on his smoldering body in the sand here above the river of lava. He's looking down and he's not killing him. And actually says this isn't for mercy. And it's like, well, he should still love him and would potentially have to set mercy aside to kill him. But he's actually doing it for time, it says initially. It then changes that for time because the Chancellor's shuttle has arrived. Or is arriving, he sees it there. So he knows two things. One is he's about to be caught. The other is Yoda failed, is potentially dead, and he's like, I can't take the time to kill him. It's like, dude, you're a Jedi. He's on sand that's already been described is slipping underneath him. So you could just force push him into the lava, or force push the sand underneath him. So again, he falls into the lava. You don't need to go down there. You're done. Time is not an issue with killing him. But then it says something else. That's not it. In the end, he was still Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he was still a Jedi, and he would not murder a helpless man. You leave it to the will of the Force. Okay, that's fine. But he would not murder a helpless man because he is a Jedi. It's like, just earlier in this chapter, we had the whole, only the Sith deal in absolutes. Well, that sure sounds like an absolute right there. Because you need to remember, Vader is a great evil. He knows this. Obi-Wan knows this. He also knows Yoda failed. Maybe Yoda is dead, meaning I'm the only Jedi left. Shit. I have the opportunity to kill one of the two Sith. The other one's coming in. I can't do that. He should be full on, I must kill him. And also, not kill a helpless man. This is frickin' Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader. He ain't helpless. Okay? He could have no arms, no legs, no prosthetics either, and still be a threat. Okay? That is who this being is. That is who Obi-Wan is as well. He should also be able to, without arms or legs, be a threat. He is not helpless. But it is still the whole, a Jedi does have a responsibility to extinguish the Sith. You have the opportunity here, you take it. Okay? That should be more so the absolute than the we don't kill helpless men. It sucks, but there is that aspect of, because he's made his choice, okay? This isn't the, do you kill Hitler as a baby? Hitler as a baby hasn't made choices yet, okay? This kind of thing. Like, in theory, Obi-Wan in that situation should try to raise Hitler to not end up making the choices he made. Right? There's more moral quandary there. Here, no, Vader made the choice. Anakin made his choices. He's Vader. Did Obi-Wan as a Jedi kill him? There's no moral issue there, Jedi or otherwise. So, I get the whole, he needs to live, but it's still, for the original trilogy, I get that. But it still is, the reasons given aren't good enough. They aren't. But if it were instead of him letting go of his love for Anakin, which also seems kind of poor because he does have a love for Luke, right? So it's, that you'd think would follow from his love for Anakin. So it's like, oh yeah, I don't love you, Dad, anymore. He was like a brother to me, but not anymore. But you I love. It's like, feels a little awkward there. But it could even have been something like, if he were to do something and think that kills Vader, but then it doesn't work. Because it could then be, the whole will the Force thing, that he tries something, but somehow Anakin stops it. Or just the Force stops it. Like if he did do a Force push to the sand, which ended up like it flowing out from under him, so now Anakin is sliding down, and he turns so he can't see it, or he gets buried or something and then gets stuck out so that Anakin survives, or even just he feels the Force pull him away, right? So that it's the Force telling him, no, this is not the time. Something like that. Anything like that, I feel would be much better, because it is setting up. Yes, they are to die, but that's later. That is to come about later, and not by you. That would have been so much better. But it's not what we get. One other thing before stopping this. Anakin's choking Padme. And Obi-Wan's just standing there being like, stop that, don't. It's like, I'm sorry. You're literally watching somebody try to kill another person, and you're a Jedi Master. And you're not being like, alright, leaping in there to protect her? To strike at the assailant here? You're not doing that? I mean, you could have him do that and still, even if it's just a moment, it still might have been long enough, along with her a long enough strangle, along with her being pregnant, along with the heat and fumes of Mustafar, along with just her emotional pain right now, that she still collapses. You could still do all that and have Obi-Wan leap in. You could still do all that. It's not like the choke needed to be held for the effect of her collapsing in a medical emergency, essentially. You could have done this differently, and it would have worked fine, but it's not what they do. And it's just... It is an issue. It is an issue. Alright, one chapter left. I don't have enough time tonight, so I guess I'll have to do it tomorrow. I was kind of hoping to do them both tonight, so that way I could be done and be able to focus more on writing instead of doing these. By the way, I do know what the next book is, but if you've seen other things that I've done, I try not to talk about what I will do next in videos, because that way you could just watch them on their own. They're more standalone. Plus, things can change. I will say this, I am very much looking forward to it. I know I've said previously, I've read it before. I'm still not really happy with how Revenge of the Sith has gone. It's still the lowest of the prequel trilogy. I doubt this last chapter will change that. So it's the way I've described this to other people is that scene in A Christmas Story when Ralphie's imagining his teacher's reaction to reading the theme. And it's like, oh, A++++, while all the kids cheer. I feel like that for going to the book after this, because I know it is, I know I've read it, and I know I enjoyed it. It's gonna feel like that, man. It's gonna feel like that. Going to it. Alright, and plus I'll probably feel better about writing after doing those. So anyway, see you next time.